Slowly, beneath the morning mists, the city of Kathmandu awakens. Even before 6 a.m, people are gathering at the Swayambhunath temple, spinning prayer wheels and making offerings to the gods, all whilst trying to avoid the mischievous monkeys. The organisers of our expedition are very aware of what a spiritual place Nepal is, and before they even started planning our trip, they asked local communities for their approval. While we're on the 6-day trek, we're going to be stopping in at temples like this one so they can bless the trek and, of course, the skydive. At our first briefing, we're talked through the trek we'll be doing into the Himalayas, then shown some of the rather scary looking equipment I'll need for my skydive over Mount Everest from 29,500 feet.
You have a neoprene face mask, you've got your goggles, you've got a helmet, the oxygen mask, and you'll be clipped to your tandem instructor.
I hope so.
Oh, you will. We'll make sure of that. Feels as if the mountains are coming up. As you're actually falling. These big mountains are coming up like this. It's awesome. It really is.
Tomorrow we leave Kathmandu for the foothills of the daunting and majestic mountain range, which boasts the highest peak in the world. Jane Dougal, 5 News, Kathmandu. Taking off in a tiny 14-seater airplane, we prepared to see our first glimpse of the highest mountain range in the world. As we rose above the clouds, suddenly there they were. The stunning peaks of the Himalayas, where I would be skydiving. Now it was all very real. As we approached Lukla, it became clear this would be a difficult landing. Just look at how short the runway is. Raising. We literally landed on the side of a mountain, and the runway's so short that as we came into it, I thought we were going to go right into the side of the mountain. I tell you what, I'm not surprised they hand these out. The plane headed back to Kathmandu, and we began our 6-day trek, slowly acclimatising to the high altitudes. Over the first few days, we ascended 1,000 metres of the magnificent landscape, taking in the amazing views. Along the way, we met people living and working on the mountainside and their beautiful children. Our guide Claire told us their livelihoods are dependent on tourism.
People come through and they think, oh, I'd really like to help do something. So there've been some schools built, some medical facilities, and also just with the income that comes into the area. People are a lot more affluent here than in a lot of other areas of Nepal. So tourism can be a very positive thing.
So far, the walk had been pleasant, but it was about to get serious.
It's getting a lot tougher now. We're at almost 3,000 metres, so the air's much thinner. It makes it harder to take a breath. My legs just feel like lead. And the guides just told me we've got to keep doing this vertical climb for another 2 hours.
I struggled to keep up, the altitude and possibly my lack of fitness making it difficult. Eventually, we arrived at our resting point in Namche Bazaar, 3,400 metres above sea level. After that trek, skydiving over these mountains should be a walk in the park. Jane Dougal, 5 News in the Himalayas. Another day, another trek. But this time it's just for me. We visited the drop zone, the place where I'll be landing after my skydive. The weather was suitably eerie.
Unbelievably, this patch of ground is actually the runway from which the plane will take off from and where we'll land after our skydive. There's no markings on it whatsoever. I don't know how we're going to be able to do it. Also, we're 3,700 metres high. You can probably just about see the mountains poking through the clouds, so we're going to have to hope that this all clears so we can jump.
Luckily, the runway has already been blessed by local Buddhist monks, and if that fails, there's always the tiny air traffic control centre.
We're going to take off and we're going to go down the runway and take off going in that direction.
Dave Wood is the chief skydive instructor for our trip.
Okay, this is your high altitude jumpsuit.
He talked me through the equipment I'll need for my jump.
Just put it on over your head and then over your forehead. then pull it down at the front so it fits over the bridge of your nose, and the elasticated piece will come over your forehead. Fit the neoprene and that over the nose piece, and I'll put the elastic over the back.
Although I look as though I'm about to rob a bank, I need this mask to protect me from temperatures of -45 as I jump out of the plane. The oxygen will help me breathe at 29,500 feet.
Very good. Looks nice. How does it feel? It should feel comfortable without being too tight.
But an equipment briefing alone isn't enough. Now I have to trek even further up these mountains so my body can get used to the high altitudes I'll be experiencing as I jump over Mount Everest. Jane Dougal, 5 News in the Himalayas. The clouds over the Himalayas had lifted. We had more energy and, more importantly, spectacular scenery. And as it turned out, it was lucky the weather had changed.
We've just come round the corner and look up there, there it is, Mount Everest. Isn't it amazing? That is the highest peak in the whole world. I can't believe we're seeing this for the first time, and I'm going to be skydiving over it.
We just stood and stared, taking in one of the 7 wonders of the world. We were walking for 5 hours and had 8 local Sherpas and porters to carry our equipment. We'd been astonished at how much they had on their backs and how quickly they managed to negotiate steep and rocky paths. Our chief Sherpa told me these loads weren't unusual.
This is nothing for Lakpa, so for me it's no problem.
This isn't
so
too heavy?
Not so heavy. This.
No.
Somebody carries 120 kilos.
120 kilos?
Yes.
That's the equivalent of a grown man.
Yes.
That's incredible. And why do they carry so much?
It's very strong. Some porters very strong.
Arriving at the monastery in ft.She, we were exhausted, but our porters even had enough energy to beat the monks in an impromptu game of volleyball. Very enlightening. In the shadow of the Himalayas, the monastery is a very spiritual place. At sunrise the next morning, we went to ask for our expedition to be blessed. We lit candles and burned incense as the monks prayed. Now we felt prepared both physically and spiritually to carry on our journey to skydive over Mount Everest. Jane Dougal, 5 News in the Himalayas. It's barren, beautiful and very, very high. People living in the village of ft.She have adapted to the thin air and lack of oxygen, but for you and I, just visiting here can be extremely dangerous.
After 6 days of trekking, we've arrived at ft.She, the highest point in our journey for me to acclimatise. If you take a look at the gadget on my watch, it says we're at more than 4,200 metres above sea level. That's almost 15,000 feet. Now at the moment, no signs of altitude sickness, I'm feeling all right, so hopefully that means I'll be okay to jump more than 29,000 feet when I skydive.
But many people don't acclimatise well. This is the Himalayan Rescue Association. They deal with hundreds of cases of altitude sickness. It's so serious, around 20 people die here every year. The symptoms begin with a headache. You then lose your appetite and feel nauseous, can become dizzy and weak. You then fall into a coma and you can die.
It's the people who are on the strict itinerary, like day 14 ft.She, day 15 Lobuche, day 16 Gorakshep, and they don't want to veer from that. Those are the people who push. They get really, really sick. And they're the ones who get carried down and oftentimes die.
After spending a day and a night in this elevated spot without any symptoms, I know my body can now cope with skydiving in the clouds over Everest. Jane Dougal, 5 News in the Himalayas. This is the first woman to ever skydive above Mount Everest. And she's British. Landing perfectly, 29-year-old Holly Budge walked into the record books.
All you could see was mountains, popping out the top. But yeah, just incredible.
First British woman out as well.
First woman, aye? Yep.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Really good. It will probably sink in a minute, so no, chuffed to nuts. Very cool.
Her free fall above Everest was from 29,500 feet. Waiting at the drop zone, there's a mix of amateur and professional skydivers hoping to jump too. They include the mother of Daniel and Natasha Bedingfield.
Feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you.
Today, Molly got a surprise phone call.
You would do wonderful, Mum. You are going to be so spectacular, and we're all waiting and watching and proud of you.
Oh, thanks, baby. Okay, I love you lots.
I love you.
Natasha's even put a message about her mother's charity, Global Angels, on her website.
I'm terrified that my mum is going to jump from the height of Everest, but she's going to do it and she's going to be fine.
Like me, Molly's doing a tandem jump.
Since I've been here, I started to get really excited about it. And I'm actually hoping to jump with you.
That would be great.
Wouldn't it be great?
Yes, it would, because you could reassure me.
Yeah, you could reassure me, I think.
Are you still a bit nervous about it?
Yeah, I'm a bit nervous, but you know, the people here in High and Wild are absolute experts. They're some of the top trainers in the world and top jumpers.
Also hoping to jump is the oldest of the group, 72-year-old Alan Walton.
For me, it's sort of adventure, living on the edge, trying to do all the things, the bucket list basically, getting in adventures that I haven't had time to do the rest of my life.
But even as Alan began to get ready, the clouds rolled in and his jump was cancelled. And that's how it stayed, grounding the plane and the skydivers. The Himalayan weather is as changeable as it is beautiful, but it has to clear soon to allow us to skydive over Everest. Jane Dougal, 5 News in the Himalayas. At first light, the aircraft is prepared, checked and checked again. Then, with its cargo of skydivers, it takes off. Alongside the Himalayan range at 22,000 feet, they jump. These are familiarisation jumps to prepare the skydivers for altitudes, wind speeds and to practice finding the drop zone. To cheers from the onlookers, the first tandem lands.
Just amazing, those views. I don't think you get anywhere else in the world. Seriously beautiful.
They're working up to the first skydive above Everest at 29,500 feet. Amongst the jumpers today is the first Nepalese man to land on the highest drop zone in the world. The organiser of the jumps gives him a traditional Nepalese welcome scarf.
I didn't feel this I'll get in my life. Wow!
I've been watching with growing anxiety because in a few days I'll be skydiving above Everest too. I asked tandem master Tom Noonan for some tips.
Make sure you take in as much of the scenery as you can. On the plane ride up, in free fall and under the parachute ride, really try to make sure you appreciate the moment. It's some of the most beautiful scenery we'll ever see skydiving. And then the other thing would be just focus on relaxed breathing. In the airplane, you're going to have your mask on. You're going to have that on through the duration of the free fall and the parachute descent. Just nice, relaxed breath. And enjoy the ride.
The aircraft is refueled and prepared for more jumps tomorrow on the most bizarre runway in the world. Jane Dougal, 5 News in the Himalayas. We hadn't seen her for a few days, but this morning Mount Everest emerged from behind the clouds, as spectacular as ever. It was perfect jumping weather, and more skydivers took the plunge at 29,500 feet. In the next day or two, it will be me taking off from the tiny airstrip in ft.She. The plane will fly to the altitude of 29,500 feet above sea level. That's higher than Mount Everest. I'll jump out and free fall for about a minute and a half, landing back at the airstrip, the highest drop zone in the world.
Okay then, there's your jumpsuit. Why don't you try it on? Let's see if it fits.
Today I was fitted for my skydiving suit by the man who'll be my tandem master.
So we wear a jumpsuit to keep everything in a controlled space. Okay. Secondly, in England when we land it's usually quite muddy. And save your clothes from getting dirty. The jumpsuit gets the beating instead of your clothes.
I don't mind about that as long as I'm safe.
You'll be safe.
But while I was trying on my suit, the weather changed again. Battling to see through the clouds, it was a difficult landing. 2 skydivers made it, but 2 missed the drop zone. For a while, no one knew if they were safe, the doctor rushing to help. But then, one emerged unscathed.
There was a point when we went in the clouds and it was horrible, you know, it was about 2,500 feet and I know that's time to set up and the airport wasn't there, so. But you can't, I just had to work on not getting scared and work on flying. So.
That's the thing with
It's
here.
horrible. I won't like, when I think about it later, I won't like it much, but I had to land it.
The other, an American, had only an injured ankle, but it's a stark reminder how dangerous skydiving from this height and in these conditions can be. Jane Dougal, 5 News in the Himalayas. We awoke to clear skies, and I knew today was the day I'd be jumping. We made our way to the drop zone to get kitted up.
Dangle out with my arms like that, head back, mouth shut. Legs tucked under.
Yeah.
And then we come out, you tap me in the shoulders and I slowly bring my arms out.
My stomach was in my mouth as we went through the drills one last time. It hit me that now I'd have to do this. I'd have to skydive above Everest at 29,500 feet. And for a moment, my fears overwhelmed me.
Everyone keeps saying to me, why are you nervous? Because I'm jumping out the plane. And I know I should be more grateful, but I really am petrified. And I got a text message from my fiance just saying, be brave, be strong. So I went and had a little cry.
The tears out of the way, we were ready to get on the tiny plane that would take me above the Himalayas. As we climbed higher and higher, I was amazed at how close we were to Mount Everest. When we reached 29,500 feet, we got the signal to go. The door opened, and then there was no turning back. We were flying above the highest mountain in the world. There's Everest behind me. At this point, I was falling through the air at 120 miles an hour, and I was counting the seconds till it was over. After around a minute of freefall, the parachute opened, sending us spinning.
Get them right up. Get your hands on your legs. Get them right up. High as you can. Keep them there. Point them up. Good girl.
Coming into land, I've never felt so relieved.
Everest just looks spectacular.
Doesn't it?
Thank you so much.
Highest mountain in the world.
And I have
and
to
you
say,
jumped from above it.
I've jumped from above the highest mountain in the world, and I'm landing. I'm alive. Alive.
Actually really good. Excellent position for exit. Excellent. She was waving and screaming at the camera all the way.
With a newfound respect for life and my instructor Ralph, I was safely on the ground. We'd done it. Skydiving above Mount Everest, the most amazing achievement of my life. Jane Dougal, 5 News in the Himalayas.